Hey everybody, today I thought we would go over the new NAR consumer guide to seller disclosures. When you're buying property, most states, in fact I think all states, require a seller disclosure form for residential properties. Not necessarily for commercial properties, but pretty much everybody for a residential property, the seller is required to put to sign and fill out a seller disclosure form. And so today we're going to go over this consumer guide from NAR about the seller disclosure. And as I've done with the others, I'm basically going to read this to make sure that I cover all the points that NAR has in there, and I may make comments as we go. So let's jump in. Consumer Guide, Seller Disclosures. When selling a home, sellers must disclose certain characteristics of the property to potential buyers. An agent who is a realtor can help you understand why and what you need to disclose. But here are the basics. What are seller disclosures? Seller disclosures are certain material defects, elements of a home that may negatively impact its value. The sellers must disclose to buyers in a legal document. While specific disclosures are dependent on state and local laws, sellers are typically required to list any completed repairs, information about natural hazards, property defects, missing essentials, land use limitations, HOA guidance, deaths on the property, and any other conditions that might negatively impact the property's value. Your agent can help you consult state and local laws to see what you are required to disclose. Why are seller disclosures important? Seller disclosures are important because they help protect both the buyer and the seller. The disclosures allow buyers to choose whether they want to make an offer on the house based on what the seller is disclosing about the property, or can influence the offer amount. For sellers, the disclosure can help protect them from legal liability, meaning they will not be responsible for any issue that arises on the property after the sale as long as it was previously disclosed. Where are seller disclosures listed? Seller disclosures are listed on a legal document called a seller disclosure form or a property disclosure statement. Most states have a standard template that the seller fills out, but some states allow the seller to disclose more conservatively, meaning that they are not required to provide as much disclosure detail. Your agent can help you understand the correct way to list your disclosures according to your state laws. Which defects, if any, need to be disclosed? Consult with your real estate professional to help understand what defects need to be disclosed. While it is not required, you can also conduct a home inspection before the listing, which can help identify potential issues that you can consider repairing before showing your home to potential buyers and use as a differentiator for your property. If you uncover possible issues that may appear during a buyer's inspection, you will have time to make any necessary changes that could impact your home's asking price, as well as defects you may need to disclose depending upon state laws. What if there are no defects that need to be disclosed? A seller can state that there are no material defects on a property on the disclosure form. However, even if you are unsure as to whether a potential defect needs to be disclosed, it's best practice to disclose it to avoid potential legal liabilities in the future. When do material defects need to be disclosed? In most states, seller disclosures are often required before the buyer signs a binding contract of sale. And some sellers choose to disclose as early as home tours. However, sellers should check with state and local guidance as conditions vary by state. What happens if a material defect about a property is not disclosed? If a seller knowingly withholds information regarding a required seller disclosure, there may be legal consequences. A buyer could cancel the sale, or the seller could be legally liable. Sellers should be honest with any and all details they are required to disclose about the home. Practices vary based on state and local laws. Consult your real estate professional and or attorney for details about state laws where you are purchasing a property, and you can visit facts.realtor for more information and resources. So that is the NAR Consumer Guide on Seller Disclosures. And so I just kind of read through it. I didn't really comment during it. So I will pick that up a little bit. Number one, this is pretty much only for residential properties, at least here in Kentucky. I'm also licensed in Kentucky and Indiana. So that's true at least in these two states. And I think in general it's true. One of the reasons is that, again, with commercial properties, there's a presumption that the buyers are more sophisticated, and so they do not really require the same level of protection. That they are sophisticated enough that they will understand a lot of these things. So that's number one. The other part of that is that with a commercial property, many times it's not even an individual that is selling the property, it's a company. And so it's kind of like, well, who is responsible for even filling it out? So because of that, most states have said, you're right, we don't really need to do that. Just make sure that you're doing good due diligence on the property. So they kind of put it on the buyer rather than on the seller. So I am going to say, though, that I want to reemphasize the fact that I think we have this natural tendency to think, why in the world am I going to say all this bad stuff about my property? It seems really counterintuitive to do that. But actually, I would say that by doing that, it actually puts you in a better position. I know it may seem kind of funny, but kind of as this consumer guide said, if you disclose all it up front, then when the buyer has a property and they've had it 6 months and the water heater goes out, but you had disclosed that the water heater was old and that it needed repair in that, well, then that's on the buyer. They can't come back and say, hey, my water heater went out and I've only had this place for 6 months and you should pay for that. It's like, no, man, we disclosed that. You knew that when you bought the house. You knew that it was going to need repair or replacement. And so it protects you in that way. The other thing it does is, like, from a negotiating point of view, if you've already disclosed all of the things with it, it's not something where they can come back and say, well, this is, the water heater's going out, the furnace is going out, and all this kind of stuff, and therefore I need to really drop the price on what we're going to pay, because it's like, no, I disclosed that when we were doing that. I mean, when we set our price, we took that into consideration, the repair of the property. And it just makes your negotiating stance a little bit stronger. So it also asked, it's like, where are these listed? When do you get a copy of them? That's going to depend upon probably mainly your local associations and what they do. I know that here in Kentucky, our local association, for the residential properties, for the MLSs, they have documents that you upload. And so in general, the rule here is that when you're listing the property, the seller needs to give you that seller disclosure form within a certain period of time, and then you upload it on the MLS. So, for people looking, for the other agents, when they look at it, they can click on that immediately and they can see what is all on that seller disclosure form. So what if there are no defects that need to be disclosed? That would be very, very unlikely. I mean, if you think that there are no defects at all, then you probably aren't, I mean, I hate to say it, but let's just be honest. You're probably not really being honest. I mean, there's almost always going to be something. And so one of the things it suggested is like, well, maybe you want to have a home inspection to get an idea of what's going to be there before you list the house. I would say different people have different strategies about that, and I'm not going to say that that's wrong. It's okay, but I think one problem that sometimes leads to is you'll get a home inspection done and you put the house on the market, and maybe you even fixed all of the major defects that it said on that report, and then another inspector comes in for the buyers and they find different things. And when that happens, sometimes you end up in this dispute between the buyer and the seller. Well, my inspector said this and my inspector said that. That's just something to consider. I just think you need to think about that. If you're going to do that, you need to consider what that might mean and how you would deal with that. And let's see. I think that kind of covers it. So for commercial properties, like I said, you don't normally do that, but sometimes people will. When they do, again, you're not really required to do that, but if you do that, normally they'll put that on our commercial information exchange, which is the equivalent of an MLS, but for commercial properties, just as sort of additional materials. So that kind of covers the seller disclosures. I think that a lot of times people don't know what to do with those things. And so I hope that answers your questions. This consumer guide is an NAR consumer guide. Their consumer guides are all about one page. And I will put a link to this consumer guide in the description below. If you have other questions, you can reach out to me. You can send me a comment or a DM. I'll also put a link to my website. You can click on there and you can send me a question or a message through my website. And so I think that about wraps it up. I've run a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I am David McCoy. My company is Otimo Properties. I am licensed in Kentucky and Indiana, and I do primarily commercial, a little bit of residential, and some international. I work with international clients quite a bit, and I think that's all I'm required to say. I'm trying to make sure I got all these things in there, but that's it, my friends, and we'll call it a day, and hope you have a great day. And if you have any other questions, reach out to me. Oh, by the way, another way you might check for questions is I've done a number of videos on various consumer guides, and I have a YouTube channel. You might check out my YouTube channel and see about other information. There's also a series of videos on frequently asked questions about commercial real estate. And so there may be some resources there that could be helpful to you. So check it out. If you found this helpful or useful, give me a like, and maybe you can share it with somebody else who might benefit from it. If you like following along on real estate topics, especially commercial real estate, you might even follow my channel and subscribe. And so we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys, and take care. Have a great day.